Hello and welcome to Break Check, the one-stop shop for Rocket League esports news, coverage, and yip-yapping. Today, we're going to be talking about the European Regional number 2 for the spring split, which is the final split of the RLCS 21-22 season. And a lot of fun stuff went on this weekend. It was a very European regional. They, with a double elim format, we've had all kinds of teams be able to kind of pop off. We've had some teams fall short, just been full of shenanigans. And so, with that said, let's go ahead and just take a look at topic number 1, which is Europe is stacked. And this is probably the most stacked main event that we have ever seen in this new circuit format. We moved from a league format to an open circuit style format in RLCS Season X or Season 10. And now this is the 11th season of professional play. And so for the past 2 seasons, we've had regionals, and it's been a little bit of a different system or structure for the esport. And this has probably been the most stacked event that we have probably ever seen. So I just wanted to look at these teams and everybody that was in the top 16 here. We got BDS Dig, Endpoint Moist, Semper, EG, Vitality, K-Corp, Luminosity, Solary, 00 Nation, Team Liquid, Aogiri, Guild Esports, Navi, and Misfits Gaming. So before we jump into the main event, I do want to just glance over here at the closed qualifier really quickly and see what went down over there, as well as look at some of the teams that were maybe unable to qualify. So we have Williams Resolve, who has been a regional mainstay, and unfortunately they have kind of gone through some internal team issues, and it has obviously impacted the team's performance. This also comes on the back of a roster change where a player on their roster, Radelson, has now joined Vitality. They have struggled to fill that position and continue moving in the same trajectory. We also have the Bricks, who was Growly, Rye, and Speed. This team, unfortunately, did not qualify. This essentially was Cookster's minions, but they replaced Cookster with Speed, and now they have failed to qualify. If I'm not mistaken, at this point, this team has... Of course, we see Solary, Liquid. We've got Wild, who have made it into the previous regional. We got Aogiri, and I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong, but this is a relatively new squad. BK Salen and Ocelon are obviously pros that have found a little bit of success in the past. And Stizzy is a newer player, turned 15 at the end of 2021, and there is a lot of hype around this. So this is a really great roster, and their first, they if I'm not mistaken, I saw on Twitter they had 4 or 5 days of practice, and they jumped right into the main event. They qualified the very first time that they attempted. So this could be a pretty dangerous squad, or at the very least, some dangerous players on this squad that may end up joining higher level squads in the offseason. We also had SK Gaming, the Odyssey, Juicers, Gross Noobs, I'm not sure, and then E-Girl Hunters. And if we look at this, like I said, we already named off the teams that were able to qualify. So that leaves us with Bricks, Juicers, Wild, SK, Noobs, Williams, E-Girl Hunters, and Odyssey not qualifying. So once again, Europe just absolutely stacked with talent. A lot of incredible rosters, and I would say even more incredible players. I think we'll see quite a bit of talent consolidation in this offseason. So with that being said, let's jump into the next topic of Dig, Evil Geniuses, and Solary. And so these 3 teams have something in common, and the thing that they have in common is they unfortunately weren't able to perform up to the maybe expected standard in this second regional. Obviously, they come from different backgrounds, where Solary is a relatively new team, and they popped off in the first regional, making it to a top 3 performance. We also have Dig and Evil Geniuses, who were both at the Winter Major, and unfortunately have had 2 regionals now back-to-back where they just didn't perform very well. And at the moment, it looks like they're probably not going to be at this final spring major for this third split of the Rocket League Championship Series 21-22 season. And it's a bad time to be having some struggles. I think there are some teams that maybe got off to a slow start. For example, Queso/Moist. They did not have the greatest first split, and then they have picked up speed and improved throughout the season, whereas a team like Dignitas or even Evil Geniuses has had a little bit of a stronger start, or Evil Geniuses more of like a strong middle split with that winter. And then they have now tapered off, and that's not ideal. That's not ideal. We're moving into this couple events. We're moving closer and closer to Worlds, and as I said, you want to be You want to be improving and performing better throughout the season, not worse. And unfortunately, a couple of these teams are performing worse. Now, what does that mean for these teams moving into the major? Dignitas and Evil Geniuses, they have an outside shot. They are two teams that if they don't win the event, they're probably not going to make it. It's just they've dug themselves a tough hole that they have to climb out of. Solary is still in a pretty good position. We'll look at points towards the end of the podcast here, but Solary with that first top 3 performance has placed themselves in a pretty good position to have a little bit of a stumble here in Regional 2. If they can bounce back in Regional 3, I think they're going to be A-okay. Now, on the flip side of that, we've got a couple teams that have really impressed. We have Team Liquid, who is a young roster. Team Liquid is actually a team that, or an organization that has been in RLCS or in RL esports space for quite a while at this point, but they haven't really found any success. They've gone through a few different rosters, and all the rosters have just struggled to perform to expectation, especially to the level of that organization. Team Liquid is a very large org that finds success across all titles. And so eventually they end up just kind of wiping the roster clean, picking up a very mechanically talented player in a Chronic, also a young gun, 15, did have a little bit of RLCS experience at the time. And then they grabbed 2 14-year-olds at the time, Oski and Atao, and just waited. They grabbed that team, signed them, and they just waited until they became 15. And they kind of said, you know what, RLCS 21-22, we're going to just throw it to the side and say, it is what it is, learning experience, and we're going to start building for the following seasons. And they have done a fantastic job in building a very powerful and capable roster. And that's on display in this final spring split. We've got them placing in kind of the middle of the pack in Regional 1, and now they have a top 2 finish here in Regional 2. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them again in the top 4 or potentially even finals in this third regional. So Team Liquid looking absolutely incredible. The young gun talent on that team is near unrivaled around the. And I think that's something that we're seeing, whether it's one player or Liquid with 2 players and their specific situation where they just kind of held off and signed them before they turned 15. We're seeing this time and time again where this young upcoming talent, incredibly mechanically gifted, Daniel, Aqua comes to mind. I think Seikoo, a little bit different situation, but just new talent, young talent that is maybe less experienced, but incredibly talented mechanically. And then they're, grabbing them and putting them on these teams, whether with veterans or an established org, and helping them just grow into a powerhouse. And that's what we're seeing with Team Liquid. Karmine Corp, a little bit different situation, but a very similar pop-off, to say the least. Karmine Corp had 3 incredible players at the beginning of the season, and they even won an event, the We Play Invitation preseason tournament. Astral, Stake, and Itachi, and everyone just had such high expectations for this roster. And while they didn't perform horribly, they certainly did not perform to expectations, nowhere close. And they went through 2 splits and eventually ended up making a change. They dropped Stake and they have added Nolly. And I mean, what a turnaround. This team has looked pretty good in Regional 1, and now in Regional 2, they have looked incredible. I am so impressed with this roster. I think one of the most impressive turnarounds for a single roster change that I maybe have ever seen. I mean, it just super impressed. And it's crazy because, Nolly is stepping in for Stake, but Stake is no slouch. I don't think that there was a big issue there mechanically or capability-wise, talent-wise. I don't think there was an issue there. It sounds like maybe there just wasn't the team composition, whether it was the team environment and communication and personality and character. Maybe they didn't get along there, or just on the field play styles or different ideas of how to play the game. Whatever it was, Karmine Corp couldn't get to the level that we thought they could. And now with Nolly on the team, wow. I mean, they have looked incredible. And, this weekend, something that we talked about is this is probably the best. Karmine Corp gave BDS the best run for their money. I think Karmine Corp played them quite well when you look at some of these other results. I mean, BDS 4-1 Liquid, BDS 3-0 Semper. And they 4-0 Liquid once, or they 4-0 Liquid once here in the finals. I mean, Karmine Corp, incredible stuff. They look really good. And both of these teams, Liquid and Karmine Corp, are poised to make the major. I think if they can replicate their performances in the first 2 regionals, I think they'll have no problems qualifying for this third and final major. And for Team Liquid, it's not going to mean all that much because they don't have the points from the first 2 splits to potentially qualify for Worlds. But for Karmine Corp, it's huge. Karmine Corp could sneak their way into the World Championship and solidify things here in this 3rd and final split of the season. So, huge change there, adding Nolly to the roster and 2 back-to-back performances that look really incredible for that Karmine Corp roster. BDS. I mean, we're talking about a roster move and what adding a single player to the roster will do. BDS was already absolutely incredible, very dominant, very consistent, and they've just gotten even better. There were so many people that were saying they're questioning the move. Is it something that they should have done? Maybe they should have worked through things, whatever else, because when you make a change like that and you're already so successful, you have to improve. And there's only so much you can improve because you've already been so successful. And anything other than an improvement is going to be heavily criticized. Well, don't you worry about it. BDS has not lost a series since they picked up Seikoo. They have gone perfect through every event. They have not been bracket reset. They have not dropped to the lowers. BDS has looked freaking insane. I don't even have words to describe how impressive they look. And the thing is, I think a lot of people are going to hear the names Monkey Moon, Seikoo, Extra, and they're going to think, oh, mechanical wizards, mechanical, circus. They're going to put on a show for us. And while they do definitely put the mechanics on display from time to time, I think the thing that is most impressive is the team chemistry straight out of the gate, which is so impressive, right? They make a roster change and they're not having issues. They're not having to work through, different play style changes or whatever. They hit the ground running. And then the second thing is, I think this is one of the highest IQ Rocket League teams on Earth. And then when you couple that with their mechanical ability, it's no surprise that they're as dominant as they are. Monkey Moon, I think, has just an understanding and a read on the game that very few players can achieve. I think the same for Extra, and Seikoo slots right into perfection. One thing that obviously is a big part of why they wanted to make a roster change is they are now an all-French roster. They brought in even a coach that speaks French as well, and it just really seems like they're all very comfortable. It really seems like they're all very happy and excited to play with one another, and they're just really enjoying themselves with this new roster. And we were kind of joking about it on the stream, and we've seen some people tweet about it, but a happy Monkey Moon is a scary Monkey Moon, and this BDS team is scary, to say the least. So, we look at this real quick. We got Moist. Couple of decent wins here. They go 4-0. This is unfortunately a perfect sweep. They literally could not score a goal. Team Liquid, we bounce back to them. They've looked incredible. Moist end up making it to top. Certainly not bad, but I know that they wanted to do better. They end up taking Karmine Corp to Game 7. Really good performance to get there. I do want to shout Guild for a moment. Guild has shown inconsistency, but they've shown a very high ceiling. I think Guild is a great team. Luminosity finally avoid BDS, but they still don't make it all that far. Not a bad performance, but not great by any means. We've got Endpoint and Simper, the showdown of the roster changes. We got RG leaving Simper, moving over to Endpoint to fill those shoes from Seikoo, and Endpoint got the better of Simper this time. We got Solary. Again, we mentioned them a little bit earlier. They fall out a little bit early. EG falling out pretty early. And once again, Dignitas falling out early as well. Europe, just all over the place, absolutely wild. And I am excited to see what that means for this final regional. There's going to be, it's wide open. There are so many teams fighting for this last, few spots. And right now, the only team that is locked and loaded, ready for the major, is BDS. They are in. They are good to go. They can relax. I think Moist is in a fantastic position. They have done well in the first 2 regionals to give themselves plenty of points. And even if they have a pretty lackluster performance here in the 3rd regional, I think they're going to be fine. So we can go ahead and count on Team BDS and Moist Esports being in London. Now, we got 2 other rosters here that have not made a major that are in a great position to do so. We got Liquid and Karmine Corp, both sitting at 530 and 510 points, respectively. And if they perform even remotely close to what they have in the first 2 regionals, are going to clinch themselves a spot in London. And then after that, we've got Solary that are a few points ahead. But if Solary have another performance where they drop out early, they only accumulate 130 points, there are plenty of teams right here on the cusp that could get up there and get a deep run, top 2, top 4 finish, and shake up the scene. We've got Team Vitality sitting at 380. We've got Simper sitting at 360. Endpoint sitting at 340, and Luminosity Gaming sitting at 310. Even Misfits are at 290. And I think, Luminosity down is kind of a long shot, but it's not impossible. So And the reason it's not impossible is because there is so much volatility in Europe. We've got a team in 12th, tied for 12th place here in Guild that could take out any of these top 4, top 5 rosters, right? If Guild, let's say Guild lose their first round matchup, if they qualify again, and Solary lose their first round matchup for some reason, and then Guild face Solary, Guild could absolutely knock them out. And that's going to, put them out early and open up that 5th spot. And so Europe is just busted wide open. There's absolutely no telling how this 3rd regional is going to go down, especially, again, I want to reiterate, the double elim format. It's wild. It's fun to watch as a viewer, but I know it is incredibly stressful as a player, especially because the beginning of the tournament is best of 5s, and best of 5s, they happen so fast. You lose one, you're not careful. You make an adjustment. You lose that second one, and now you're on match point, and you got a reverse sweep. And so best of 5 double elim is just full of shenanigans, and we've seen it throughout, and I expect to see it once more in this final regional for Europe in this spring split of the RLCS 21-22 season. That is going to do it for today's episode of Break Check. I appreciate you hanging out. We will catch you all next time. Peace.